Most retirement advice tells you the same thing: save more, invest smarter, delay Social Security as long as you can stand it. There's a different math available, a math where the monthly budget drops to under $1,500, not because you're cutting corners, but because you move somewhere that costs less to operate your life, where property taxes run $40 a year, where a doctor's visit without insurance costs $15, where land, actual land, your name on the deed, sells for under $5,000 total. These places exist, and in 2026, a combination of new federal tax law, expanding legal protections for small footprint housing, and a maturing market for move-in ready cabin structures has made them more accessible than at any point in the last decade. This video covers 8 specific towns. Some sit inside Arizona and Arkansas counties where zoning is loose and land is genuinely cheap. One anchors a state that just made Social Security income fully exempt from state taxes, which changes the retirement math for hundreds of thousands of people on fixed incomes. 2 are mountain towns in Panama, where the climate alone eliminates an entire spending category from your monthly budget. 1 sits inside a country where annual property taxes total less than the cost of a dinner out. And the final town is a valley in Ecuador, where a retiree collecting Social Security can live comfortably and still have money left at the end of each month. Each location has a specific mechanism, the thing that makes it work beyond just cheap land. We'll cover prices, monthly budgets, visa requirements for the international options, and the healthcare access that makes remote living sustainable rather than just affordable on paper. The cabin doesn't have to be a survival situation. For a growing number of retirees running the numbers in 2026, it's the decision that finally makes the budget functional. Here are 8 places where you can still retire comfortably in a cabin for almost nothing. 2026, Sierra Vista, Arizona. Start with the land price, because it's the number that reframes everything else. 1 to 5 acres in the surrounding county runs between $1,500 and $4,000. That's the full purchase price, not monthly, not annual. You hand someone $4,000 and you own land in the American Southwest with your name on the deed. Sierra Vista sits in southeastern Arizona, and what makes this region function as a retirement destination isn't just the price point. The county operates with minimal zoning restrictions. RVs are permitted, tiny homes are permitted, unconventional structures that would generate fines or legal challenges in most jurisdictions across the country are simply allowed here. The off-grid living rating is among the highest nationally, not because the landscape is extraordinary, but because the regulatory environment consistently refuses to get in the way of small footprint living. The terrain is high desert, it is spare, open, and quiet. Solar potential is ranked as excellent, and that matters because the path to low monthly expenses here runs directly through energy independence. No utility hookup means no monthly bill. The trade-off is upfront capital, a solid solar array, a septic system, and a water filtration setup together run somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000. That's the honest number, and any plan that ignores it is incomplete. Water management specifically requires active attention. Wells are possible in certain areas, but the dominant model here is water hauling or delivery, which creates a low variable monthly cost rather than a large fixed drilling expense. What that infrastructure investment buys is a monthly housing overhead in the range of $300 to $500. Taxes, insurance, basic maintenance, instead of the $1,500 to $2,000 that defines typical American retirement housing costs. Over a decade, the math shifts dramatically. Here's what most people overlook about Sierra Vista specifically. It isn't medically isolated. The town has developed into a regional senior care hub. The Northern Cochise Community Hospital runs 24-hour emergency services and rural health clinics that carry Medicare certification. The area also has over 11 assisted living and memory care communities, a continuum of care that allows a retiree to start in an off-grid cabin and eventually transition to more supported living without leaving the region. The desert isn't comfortable for everyone. The heat is real, the access roads reward tolerance for inconvenience, and the water situation demands ongoing management. But for the retiree who has done that calculation and decided the trade-offs are worth it, Sierra Vista's surrounding land offers a regulatory and financial profile that's difficult to match anywhere else in the continental United States. For the retiree who wants to push the price floor even lower and is willing to trade a little more access for a little more savings, the next town takes things further. St. John's, Arizona. Parcels in the surrounding high country start at $1,000. That is the floor for acreage in the American Southwest, and it doesn't land there by accident. St. John sits in northeastern Arizona, and the terrain is more varied than the Sierra Vista region. Higher elevations, mountain stretches, land that transitions between desert and high plateau. Many of the most affordable parcels are accessible only by unmaintained or minimally maintained dirt roads. When the pool of buyers shrinks to people specifically comfortable with remote access, sellers price to reflect that reality. For a retiree who values isolation and doesn't need a paved driveway as a condition of daily life, that suppressed price is a leverage point rather than a limitation. The zoning philosophy mirrors what's available further south. Off-grid structures are permitted across most of the rural land. There are no HOA restrictions on the majority of parcels, and no minimum square footage requirement that would force construction of something larger than the retiree's actual needs. The higher elevation provides meaningful natural temperature regulation, relief from the low desert summer heat that makes extended stays in Phoenix uncomfortable without heavy air conditioning. Solar potential remains strong throughout the region, and the water management approach is identical to the broader Arizona model. Hauling and delivery maintains a variable monthly cost without the large upfront investment of deep well drilling, which can run tens of thousands of dollars before any other construction begins. This is the most extreme version of the Arizona value proposition. Not a diluted alternative or a compromise. It's the full logic of off-grid retirement economics taken to its natural price floor. Land for $1,000, permissive zoning, strong solar, genuine privacy. The trade-offs are greater than in the Sierra Vista area. Access is harder, healthcare infrastructure is further away, and the overall remoteness requires a higher tolerance for self-sufficiency. But the land entry cost is lower, which shifts the total capital required to reach a habitable setup. The retiree this town works for has already made their peace with remote living. They're not wondering whether they can manage it, and they've decided it's what they want. And if you think Arizona's approach to off-grid freedom is effective, wait until you see what New Mexico did with it at the state government level. Belen, New Mexico. New Mexico ranked first in the country for off-grid living in 2026. That distinction reflects something deliberate. The state didn't just happen to have affordable land. It built a legal framework specifically designed to support people who want to live independently outside the utility grid. Rainwater harvesting is legal in New Mexico, permitted, encouraged, and integrated into rural living at the policy level. In many states, collecting the rain that falls on your own property remains a legal gray area or an outright violation. New Mexico made it the documented default, combined with strong solar potential across most of the state's rural areas. And that legal permission allows a retiree to achieve genuine utility independence without the ongoing uncertainty of whether a local official might eventually cite them for a code violation. Land surrounding Belen and the broader Valencia County area runs between $1,200 and $4,000 for 1 to 5 acres. Most rural parcels sit outside any HOA jurisdiction. No association dictating structure type, roof line, or exterior materials. The land market here regularly features owner financing arrangements, where the seller carries the note directly, often without a credit check. For retirees who have assets but limited liquid capital, or who prefer to avoid involving a bank entirely, that kind of direct purchase is a genuine access point. Further south towards Socorro, the same pattern continues into more remote terrain. The regulatory environment stays consistently accessible. You're not navigating a multi-agency approval process to get permission to build a modest cabin on land you've purchased outright. New Mexico made a deliberate policy choice to attract independent settlers, and the land market reflects that intention. The monthly cost profile in rural New Mexico, once infrastructure is in place, looks similar to the Arizona model. Housing overhead stays low, solar offsets utilities, and groceries and transportation become the primary variable expenses. What differs is the legal certainty underneath all of it, the knowledge that your rainwater collection, your off-grid electrical system, and your non-traditional structure all sit within a framework the state explicitly endorses removes a layer of ongoing anxiety that rural living in more restrictive states carries. That certainty matters over a long retirement. For anyone drawn to the Southwest logic, affordable land, loose zoning, solar independence, but who wants green instead of desert and rain instead of drought management, the next town makes the same financial case inside a completely different landscape. Melbourne, Arkansas. Arkansas is a different climate entirely. The Ozark region surrounding Melbourne is forested, temperate, and receives consistent annual rainfall, enough that the water challenge defining Southwest cabin living essentially doesn't exist here. The terrain is buildable and provides natural privacy buffers that desert land doesn't offer. Land in Izard County, where Melbourne sits, runs between $2,500 and $6,000. Benton County to the northwest, which has seen some appreciation from nearby regional growth, still offers parcels between $3,500 and $7,000. Both sit within forested land that rewards the retiree who wants a cabin that looks and feels like a cabin. Wood, shade, quiet mornings, and the sound of wind through trees rather than open desert silence. As yet, Arkansas has no uniform statewide building code for cabins, which creates meaningful local variability. Washington County has adopted rules that permit structures as small as 120 square feet, provided they meet basic safety standards. That level of flexibility is genuinely rare in the eastern United States, where most counties maintain minimum square footage requirements that push retirees into building larger and spending more than their lifestyle requires. The term unrestricted appears across a significant number of Ozark land listings. In practice, it means the parcel sits outside municipal zoning with no recorded HOA rules. It doesn't mean zero requirements. Arkansas still mandates a septic permit from the state health department for any permanent dwelling, and that permit runs between $3,500 and $11,000 depending on site conditions. That cost is real and non-negotiable, and any budget that omits it will come up short. But beyond the septic requirement, the structural latitude in these counties is substantial. The growing season in the Ozarks runs roughly 260 days. For a retiree who gardens even modestly, that duration reduces grocery spending in a sustained way that compounds meaningfully over years of retirement living. It's a recurring benefit that the Southwest simply can't match at the same scale. The Ozarks solve the retirement math through cheap land, regulatory decentralization, and a climate that handles water and temperature without requiring the same infrastructure investment the desert demands. That covers the major domestic land plays. But one city in 2026 didn't change the land situation at all. It changed the tax math so significantly that it moved itself onto this list anyway. Charleston, West Virginia. Charleston's transformation in 2026 is a tax policy story, and the details matter. The federal One Big Beautiful Bill Act, combined with West Virginia's own state-level legislation, made Social Security income 100% exempt from state taxes starting this year, for all income levels, not just for lower earners. Not a partial exemption that phases out above a certain threshold. Full exemption across the board. For a retiree in a low-cost surrounding county like Raleigh or Kanawha, where housing costs are already well below the national average, that exemption produces a direct monthly improvement. If the primary income is $1,800 or $2,200 a month from Social Security, keeping the full amount rather than losing a percentage to state income tax is the difference between a budget that functions and one that requires supplemental withdrawals from savings. An estimated 400,000 retirees are projected to benefit from expanded Social Security exemptions across states that adopted similar measures this year. West Virginia positioned itself deliberately to capture a portion of that migration, and the policy change didn't arrive in isolation. It came alongside the state's existing advantages, some of the lowest rural property costs in the eastern United States, and a healthcare infrastructure unusually well developed for a state of its size. The reason for that healthcare depth is demographic. West Virginia has one of the oldest populations in the country, which has driven a high concentration of geriatric specialists and senior-focused medical services. Charleston provides that infrastructure directly, and the rural counties surrounding it offer the land cost advantage without requiring retirees to sacrifice access to specialized care. West Virginia consistently gets overlooked in favor of warmer or more scenically marketed states, but the combination of a meaningful structural tax reform and established senior care infrastructure creates a functional profile that warmer alternatives don't always match when the full financial picture is laid out. A state that takes none of your Social Security creates a financial floor that persists for the duration of retirement, regardless of what happens to investment values or inflation elsewhere. For retirees open to stretching that income even further into a different category of dollar to lifestyle value, the next 3 locations work on a different scale entirely. Boquete, Panama. Boquete sits in Panama's Chiriquí province, roughly a mile above sea level. The altitude produces a climate that stays in the mid-60s to low 70s year-round. No seasonal extremes, no summer heat requiring air conditioning, no winter cold requiring heat. What that climate means financially is the elimination of an entire expense category. Heating and cooling represent a consistent line item in most retirement budgets. Whether it's a Texas summer or a Wisconsin winter, climate control costs money month after month. In Boquete, that expense doesn't exist. No heating system to run, no air conditioning required. That's a structural reduction in monthly overhead that compounds over years of living there. Panama's Pensionado visa was built specifically for retirees, and its benefits are concrete. It's 25% off utility bills, 50% off entertainment, 25% off airline tickets. The monthly income requirement is $1,000, accessible to many American retirees on Social Security alone. And the visa, once granted, is permanent. One American expat purchased a 2-acre coffee farm with an existing house in this region for $125,000. That number reflects the land market when you step away from Panama's tourist-facing coastal zones and into the agricultural highlands. The property came with existing infrastructure, not a raw parcel requiring construction from scratch. A single retiree living comfortably in Boquete budgets between $1,600 and $1,800 per month, covering housing, food, transportation, and healthcare. In the city of David, less than an hour's drive away, hosts modern private hospitals where English is widely spoken. A doctor's visit without insurance runs roughly $15. Private health insurance for a couple costs a fraction of equivalent US premiums. The climate removes one spending category entirely. The visa delivers ongoing discounts across several others, and the David healthcare corridor keeps the primary risk of remote retirement, medical isolation, manageable. And if Boquete feels too developed, too populated with fellow expats who all found the same valley, there's a town in Belize that offers something Panama can't, a property tax structure that barely registers as a cost at all. San Ignacio, Belize. The property tax figure for Belize stops most people when they hear it. Less than $40 per year for a standard home, not $40 per month, per year. That's the documented reality of property ownership in the Cayo district, where San Ignacio serves as the regional hub, reflecting a deliberate national policy to keep land accessible to long-term foreign residents. It's the number that defines this location in the conversation about retirement costs. San Ignacio sits inland, separated from Belize's coastal tourist economy centered around places like San Pedro. That separation is what drives the land prices. Riverfront lots in the surrounding district are available for under $35,000. A 400 square foot cottage in an established expat development runs around $115,000. Delivered, finished, and ready to occupy. A solar-powered 1,000 square foot home can be built for approximately $250,000, fully independent of the utility grid. Belize's currency is the Belizean dollar, pegged 2-to-1 with the US dollar, a peg that has held for decades and removes the exchange rate volatility that makes some international retirement destinations financially unpredictable year to year. What you budget in US terms is what you spend, with no conversion math and no currency risk to manage. Belize is also the only country in Central America where English is the official language. That distinction removes a friction point that's easy to underestimate before you're living it. Banking, healthcare conversations, legal documents, interactions with local officials, daily transactions. All of it happens without a language barrier. A single retiree here budgets between $1,400 and $1,600 per month. The required visa, the qualified retirement program, asks for documented income of $2,000 per month. Higher than Panama's Pensionado threshold and worth factoring carefully into eligibility planning. But for retirees who qualify, the carrying costs of property ownership are among the lowest available in the hemisphere. At $40 a year in property tax, the asset costs almost nothing to hold, which means time spent living there builds equity rather than servicing ownership costs. The final location on this list takes a different approach to the same math, where San Ignacio reduces the ongoing cost of ownership to almost nothing. One small valley in Ecuador reduces the total monthly budget further than anywhere else covered in this video. Vilcabamba, Ecuador. Vilcabamba is a village in southern Ecuador's Loja province, sitting at around 5,000 feet in elevation. It gained international attention decades ago for a reported concentration of residents living past 100. That specific claim has been challenged by researchers and shouldn't be taken at face value. What is well documented and considerably more relevant to retirement planning is the cost of living. A single retiree in Vilcabamba can sustain a comfortable, functional life on $750 per month at the low end. A version with more food variety, a vehicle, and occasional regional travel runs around $1,500. Those are the lowest monthly budgets of any location covered in this video, not theoretical minimums achieved through deprivation, but actual reported spending from expats who live there full time. Ecuador uses the US dollar as its official currency. No exchange rate to monitor, no conversion calculation, no foreign currency account required. The dollar you have at home is the same dollar you spend in Vilcabamba. The Jubilado visa, Ecuador's retirement visa, requires documented monthly income of $1,410. Social Security alone covers that threshold for a significant portion of American retirees. The application process is accessible and doesn't require large financial reserves or in-country property investments. Land in the surrounding Loja province is affordable in real terms. Flat construction sites near rivers start at $53,000. For a retiree who wants to build a small cabin rather than rent indefinitely, the land cost is workable without requiring the sale of major assets. Healthcare is what keeps Vilcabamba's low monthly budget sustainable rather than precarious. Cuenca, Ecuador's third largest city, is accessible from the region and has become one of the world's more well-regarded destinations for affordable, high-quality medical care. Private health insurance in Ecuador costs between 50 and 70% less than comparable US coverage, and many out-of-pocket procedures carry a price tag lower than a standard US insurance deductible. The math in Vilcabamba works differently than anywhere else on this list. $750 a month means a retiree collecting $1,200 from Social Security ends each month with money left over, available for savings, travel, or land investment, rather than disappearing into housing and utility costs. For the retiree who has done the numbers on staying in an expensive American environment and found they don't add up, Vilcabamba is where the arithmetic finally resolves. 8 towns, 3 anchored in the American Southwest and Appalachia, 2 in Panama's highlands, 1 in Belize's interior, 1 in Ecuador's southern valleys. The range is wide, but the mechanism underneath each place is consistent. These towns are affordable not because they were overlooked or because they lack what retirees need. They're affordable because they've maintained, through policy, geography, or deliberate legal design, the conditions that make low-cost living possible over time. Sierra Vista's surrounding land didn't update its zoning to reflect development pressure. New Mexico built a legal framework around independent rural living and kept it intact. West Virginia restructured its tax code specifically to benefit retirees on fixed incomes. And Belize held its property tax rate at a level that makes ongoing ownership nearly free. Ecuador never replaced the US dollar. Each affordability has a cause, and causes rooted in policy and geography tend to be durable. What also shifted in 2026 is the infrastructure around this decision. Amish-built modular cabin units now start under $90,000, delivered and assembled. A DU legislation in several states prevents municipalities from outright banning small footprint homes where they previously could. Social Security income is now fully exempt from state taxes in an expanding list of jurisdictions. The financial and legal landscape for cabin retirement has fewer obstacles than it carried 5 years ago. The retirees who move to these places aren't retreating from retirement. Yet they made a specific calculation that the cost of staying in an expensive environment outweighed what that environment provided. They found that these 8 towns delivered most of what mattered: healthcare within reach, legal rights to build, currency stability, a climate that reduces overhead at a fraction of their previous costs. The cabin isn't the compromise. For the people running this math clearly, it's the plan that works.